Talk to us a little bit about what the Treasury Secretary had to say about bonds, ultra-long bonds, and the approach they would take.
There's been a lot of speculation in recent years about the prospect of the U.S. issuing ultra long-term bonds. These would be bonds that would be good for 50 or even 100 years. The U.S. government has looked at the idea a couple of times in the past, including in 2017 when Steve Mnuchin looked at it himself, but it's always been tabled. There's never been much market demand for Treasury bills of that length. But with interest rates as falling as precipitously as they have recently for 30-year Treasuries and shorter-term Treasuries, it looks like the Treasury Department is once again considering the idea very seriously, as he says, of issuing extremely long-term debt.
So how much does this have to do with concerns about a recession, given the recent inversion in the yield curve amidst an escalating trade war between the U.S. and China?
Yeah, he dismissed the idea that the yield curve inversion signals a recession, which you would expect him to do. He's part of the Trump administration, and they certainly don't want to deal with a recession headed into an election year. This probably has more to do with figuring out innovative ways to pay for a yawning budget deficit. The deficit's expected to exceed $1 trillion again this year, and they need to issue more debt to cover that gap. Long-term bonds would be a way to do that.
Meantime, let's talk a little bit about what he said about the dollar and whether or not the U.S. would intervene when it comes to currency issues. Certainly, the president has accused China of currency manipulation, given the action that they've taken with respect to the yuan. What will we do here in the United States?
He has said that we are not considering an intervention at this time. So right now, it doesn't seem to be on the table.
And lastly, let's talk about China. We've got potential trade talks coming up next week. Are they happening?
We have no indication the Chinese plan to come to Washington next week to resume trade talks. As far as we know, talks are dead for the moment because of this recent escalation between the president of the United States and China, who have raised tariffs on each other's goods just in the past 2 weeks.